This chair is so squeaky. Hello, welcome here. My name is Becca if you're new. I am just finally getting settled into our new place here. We just moved to Vancouver and we're in this really cute little basement apartment. Now that we are getting settled, I'm thinking of doing 2 videos a week. Call me crazy. I don't know if I can do it, so don't hold me to it. But I'm gonna keep doing my Thursday videos as normal. So the more like vloggy, what's happening in our lives, just the fun stuff. And I just feel like I have so much to chat about. And so I was like, well, why don't I just do these really easy sit down chatting videos? I love talking to you guys. I love all the comments that I get back and the conversations that we can have. So I think I'm going to do Monday videos as well. Billy hates this idea. But I have made myself a tea. I haven't actually tried this one. This is not sponsored anyway, but there's a Canadian company and she actually sent me her teas. This chair is so squeaky. Anyways, I'm trying this green tea. They're so beautiful. Oh, I don't usually like green tea very much, but this one's incredible. I've had the chamomile one and it is exceptional. You know when chamomile tea is like too bland? This one has so much flavor, I don't know how she does it. Anyways, if you're in Canada, check out her company because it's beautiful. So today, I wanted to talk about something, I don't know, it's like when you are vegan and then you go to vegetarian, you feel like you have to explain yourself, and then when you go from vegetarian to eating everything, again, you feel guilty and you feel like you have to explain yourself. Now I'm looking at that and like, I feel like that's such a red flag. Anyways, so this whole video, I'm just gonna be chatting about why I eat everything now. 2 seconds of explanation. I started out as vegan and I did that for a couple years and then I went vegetarian for a bit. Actually, it was with both my pregnancies. So I was vegan for a while. I got pregnant the first time and then I started eating dairy. And so then I was like, you know, I guess I'm just vegetarian. I'm okay with that. The next pregnancy, 2 years later, I started eating meat because I was craving it every single day. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I started eating meat and now I eat everything and I love it. I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts about it, see what all of you guys have to say. There can be a lot of backlash from people that don't eat meat, and I am going to explain every thought that I've had on this subject. Watch to the end before you say anything nasty. First, I thought I would go through the why. Why did I start eating meat? Why have I incorporated it into my diet? First, big reason for me is just that it is so much easier, and I say this coming from the craziest year of our lives. Like, it has been a doozy, and sometimes that's all you need, is you need to not think about food constantly. When you eat plant-based, you can figure it out and it becomes a lot easier at that point. Like, for example, when you first go plant-based, it's very hard to figure out what to eat. And in fact, when I convinced a lot of my family to do it, they messaged me and they're like, I don't know what to cook for myself, because it's tricky. You have to completely like rewire your brain and how you think about food. Every meal that you have cooked for yourself over the last several years, you can't make anymore, and the main part of your plate is gone, and like you can't just stick a block of tofu to replace that piece of chicken. Anyways, so it's just so much easier and it takes up less thought. See, it doesn't even sound like that big of a deal, but it's what we have needed this past year. Next is that it's just a lot less restrictive. I found this picture, I hope I can find it and I'll put it up here for you, but there was this diagram, and I used to be whole food plant-based. I used to eat this way and be like, oh, I'm only getting the healthiest foods and it's great. But you look at the chart and it's like a whole bunch of check marks for the people that eat everything because they can eat everything. And then you have the vegans and it's quite a few less. And then you look at the whole food plant-based and it's like 2 little check marks of what they can eat. Like I said, back in the day, I used to think that that was the best thing for me and my body. Now I look at that and I just think that it is incredibly restrictive, and I can't do that anymore. You hear a lot of stories about people that are vegan and then they start going down the slippery slope of restricting and kind of hyperfixating on eating super duper healthy, and they, yeah, orthorexia is a real thing, and it's not a good thing. I think now that I eat everything, I don't hyperfixate on super healthy eating. I'm more flexible and I'm more happy with what I'm eating. Next is that I feel like less of a burden. So this is a big thing about me going vegan. I hated this when I would have to tell people, oh, sorry, I can't eat this delicious thing that you made me because I'm vegan, or sorry, we have to go to this specific restaurant because it caters to vegan eating. And that's not always the case. Like, a lot of bigger cities have a lot of vegan options. However, like my hometown has nothing. It is a food desert. If you try to go out to eat with your friends or family, you might be able to get one vegetarian thing at that restaurant. They don't know how to make vegan food. And the other thing too, like if we would get invited to have dinner with friends and I would have to tell them, oh sorry, can you make something vegan? First of all, they would be like, I don't know what to make. So then I would try to give them ideas, and then I just felt really bad that they had to go out of their way. Like they're already being kind enough to invite us over for dinner to hang out, and then I have to add this like really huge extra layer on top. Like, sorry, you're gonna have to go to the store and buy a bunch of specialty ingredients so that you can make me some cashew cheese. Like it's just so much nicer just to be able to say we eat everything, and it ends there. It's easy. The next thing is that I feel like it is so much more of a balanced diet when you do eat meat. You can definitely 100% get enough protein from a plant-based diet. However, you have to be very intentional about it. Once I started powerlifting, I realized how much protein you actually need, even when you're not powerlifting. Even if you're just living your everyday life, you need a lot more protein than I thought on a plant-based diet. Hence, it's just a lot easier to get what you need quickly sometimes without much fuss. Like with a cup of beans, you can't just eat a cup of beans. You have to dress it up in a whole meal. Whereas with tuna, you can slap some mayonnaise and relish with it and it's delicious, and I will eat it straight like that. The other thing too about this is that I look back at some of the meals that we would eat constantly and they are just incredibly unbalanced. Like there's a lot of carbs and fat in our plant-based vegetarian meals, but there isn't necessarily a lot of protein. Because when I went plant-based, I think my go-to to try to fill the holes in my diet, I would make a normal meal, but I would just add more vegetables in the hole or add another fat source, and I wouldn't necessarily replace it with protein. The next one is that it feels a lot healthier mentally. I realized that I was feeling really guilty and holding myself to these really high standards that I set for myself. And then once I stepped back and realized that, I realized it didn't make much sense. So now I don't have any of those restrictions. I don't have any of those standards set for myself. I don't feel any guilt, and I just feel happy. And then the last thing, my last big why, is that I have 2 kids. I want to feed them everything, and I don't want to give them a weird diet, and I don't want them to have any restrictive thoughts about food. The other thing, it's also highly recommended to give kids all of the allergens. For example, like my 6-month-old, she's supposed to start eating solids, and it's supposed to have shellfish and eggs and dairy, and a lot of them weren't in a vegan diet. And so for my son, we actually were vegan, and I raised him vegetarian. I still gave him cheese and dairy and stuff, but I wasn't comfortable giving him any kind of fish or meat. Now it's biting me in the butt because he refuses to eat any meat, which might sound awesome to people that are anti-meat. However, it's incredibly hard. So like when we're doing these huge road trips and we need to stop to get food at a restaurant, and he refuses to eat anything because he doesn't like chicken nuggets, he doesn't like pizza, he doesn't like burgers, like he doesn't eat any of the normal kid foods. You know what he does love? He loves plain cold tofu. He likes chickpeas. So like he has a pretty interesting varied diet, which I love, and I think I can recreate that with my daughter. I'm just going to be less restrictive. So she's already eating and loving eggs. That's another thing he refuses to eat. He doesn't touch eggs. It's really tricky. Also, going over to friends' houses, again, like they'll make us food and he won't eat it because it has meat in it. I regret not giving him some now. Now that I have gone through all of the reasons why I am no longer considered plant-based, I'm going to talk about why I do love plant-based. It doesn't make a lot of sense. First, I feel like eating vegan and vegetarian for so long taught me to love to eat vegetables and to love fiber. I require fiber for every single meal because I know that that's how I feel healthy, it's how I feel satiated. It's important to me. Next, I think that cooking plant-based for so long, it really teaches you how to cook well, because that whole thing that I was saying before, it's a lot easier cooking and eating meat, but you do have to get so creative and you really have to learn how to cook vegetables so that they taste good, which is not an easy thing to do. Like so many people, it drives me crazy when people say that they don't like vegetables. I'm like, no, you just don't like how you have eaten your prepared vegetables. For example, my husband was a very picky eater, and then we went plant-based. Well, I did, and then I kind of coerced him into doing it with me. Now he's not picky at all because we have figured out how to cook everything and how to cook it really well so that it tastes good. And so now we eat everything. Another big reason that I still eat mostly plant-based with a little bit of meat is that I still think it is so much better for the environment, which is the #1 reason that I went plant-based in the first place. For my health and then also for the environment were my 2 big reasons. And the last reason is that it's generally much cheaper because, again, like the meat and the dairy and the cheese and all of that is still going to be the most expensive ticket items on your grocery bill. So if you cut way back and you don't eat that much of of it and it's just more of a treat throughout your month, or if you do go all the way plant-based, it's going to save you a lot of money. Like there's nothing around that. For example, we just made chicken enchiladas from a rotisserie chicken. It has a bunch of cheese in it and chicken and the verde tomatillo sauce. It's incredibly delicious. But when we look at that meal, it's like, wow, this is a pretty pricey meal. So what I've started doing is I've cut the chicken in half and I just replace it with white beans, because then I'm getting more fiber, more nutrition from the beans. It's more varied and it's filling up our bellies without as much cents per pound. So my last final thoughts here, my sort of end notes, I guess. I still don't eat that much meat. I want to say that I probably eat it about once a week on average. It is more of a treat in my diet. It's not like I went full ham and I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat meat for 3 of my meals every single day. I still love eating mostly plant-based, but I just have no guilt or shame around eating meat when I do have it, and I enjoy it. And the other thing too is that I try to source it well. This isn't always the case. We are going through quite the economic crisis right now, and so I can't always afford to go to a local butcher to get like the finest meat. That is how I want to do it, and that is how I choose to do it on occasion. It's not the way that I do it every single time. And then again, this whole thing, I'm not going to set this really high standard and feel guilty if I don't meet it. Sometimes a dinner is a dinner, and that's all that it needs to be. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I think eating a limited amount of meat throughout your week, throughout your month, if you're still being very intentional with where you're getting it from, it's not going to make that big of a difference in the end. I would rather encourage more people to eat more plant-based, and I love sharing recipes on plant-based eating, and I think that that has a bigger effect than just me micro-focusing on my diet and making it perfect. Anyways, I think it's interesting because a lot of people go through this. Like, they go full vegan and they do it for such a long time, and then they slowly wean themselves off of it, and there's just a lot of big feelings involved with it. There's a lot of big thoughts. So yeah, I guess I'm just going through that process right now. I love sharing everything, so if you want to talk more about it, let's chat down in the comments, or you can send me a private message somewhere if you want it to be long and personal. Let's talk. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye.